I hope it's as crazy as the other one.
Probably it is.
Alright. This fanfiction is called Childhood Crush by Sunny Hobie. Summary. On one of Perry's many missions to destroy whatever evil plan Dr. Dovenschmerz had, Perry ended up getting hit by an innator and found himself human. Oh great. After roughly kicking Dovenschmerz's ass, Perry remembered that Dovenschmerz had said that it would last 8 hours. Worried about going back home, Perry slipped in a random apartment to hide. Even though he wasn't a platypus at the moment, he was still teal. Meanwhile, Yoongi found himself waking up to a mysterious teal-skinned man. Upon realizing that the man was actually Perry the platypus, Yoongi realizes that he can finally act on his childhood crush. Smut and shoes. Oh, that's a long summary. Alright. Yoongi was just returning back to his apartment after spending nearly 12 hours at the studio he'd rented for the time being. BTS was on the break, and he used that time to stay at his $3 million apartment.
Wow.
He figured he could use some time away from the members to come up with some more ideas for their next album. He liked to stay away from home, and he wrote down songs or composed music because he considered his home a place where he relaxed and all other thoughts went flying out. This particular night, he was extremely exhausted and couldn't wait to crash onto his bed and sleep until the day after tomorrow. He clumsily managed to unlock his door and tiredly leaned against the wall as he kicked off his shoes before pushing the door shut with his leg. Yoongi took off all his clothes except his boxers and climbed under his soft linen sheets. He was asleep before he could think a single thought. Yoongi awoke to rustling. There's someone in my apartment, was his first thought. His second was,
oh no, terrible.
It's a Sasaeng. What the fuck? Sasaeng.
Shit.
Sasaeng. I don't know what that is. That thought made his blood run cold. He, as quietly as he could, grabbed the nearest thing next to him, a lamp, and walked out of his room. Yoongi held the lamp with both hands above his shoulder, ready to hit the intruder, while simultaneously cursing himself for not locking his door. He got to his living room and quietly tiptoed to the light switch, and on the count of 3, he switched the lights on. The person in front of him was not who he expected. It was a man. A man with teal paint. Or no, maybe that was just his skin. He looked distressed and was seated on the floor, cross-legged, oscillating back and forth. What the fuck? Were the first words out of Yoongi's mouth.
I'm feeling so OP now.
The man startled and looked at Yoongi with large eyes. Yoongi sucked in a breath through his teeth. The man's eyes were beautiful. A rich chocolate brown that reflected off his skin and sparkled like gold on the yellow light of his living room. He looked scared, but Yoongi was not going to let his guard down. Who are you? Yoongi asked, the question coming out firmer than he intended, causing the man to wince. Haha, long story actually, the man started off. Yoongi gave him a humorless look at which the man cleared his throat. Right, so you're going to find this hard to believe, but I'm Perry, the man confessed, his eyes shut in anticipation of Yoongi's reaction.
Bad idea.
Instead, Yoongi just looked at him with confusion. Perry? Am I supposed to be surprised because... He asked with his head slightly cocked to one side. Perry rolled his eyes before pulling out a brown fedora out of nowhere and putting it atop his head. Yoongi gasped. Perry the platypus? I mean the human? Yoongi said, feeling more confusion that was accompanied by shock. Perry sighed. Well, technically, yes to both. You see, Dovenschmerz made a new innator that turned humans into animals and vice versa, because he believed he could tame them all and take over the Tree area. Perry rolled his eyes once again, and Yoongi sicked and shook his head. So we were fighting and I got blasted by the innator. I mean, of course, I kicked his ass harder after. And I destroyed the innator, but the effects haven't gone yet. Apparently I'm stuck like this for the next 8 hours and I can't go home to Phineas and Ferb like this, Perry said, a distress in voice rising. Yoongi walked over to him and sat down next to him. He put his hand on Perry's shoulder to comfort him. He felt the warmth Perry felt against his palm. He felt slight arousal occur in his stomach.
He's exploding.
Hey, it's okay. They're asleep right now. It's only... Yoongi looked at the clock on the wall. 2 a.m. By the time they wake up, we'll probably be back there. If they are early risers, it's okay, because you're missing almost always. Why don't you spend the rest of your human time here, with me instead? Yoongi asked, his finger tracing patterns on Perry's radiant teal skin.
It's a problem.
Perry shivered slightly, causing Yoongi to look into Perry's eyes. Yoongi found himself lost in Perry's chocolate brown orbs. Yoongi began speaking without realizing. You know, I always found you attractive. I never told anyone because... Yoongi raised his hand up to Perry's face and ran his fingers across Perry's naturally pouted lips, sensually. You were a platypus, and it would be bestiality. But now! Yoongi pulled at Perry's... Yoongi pulled at Perry's bottom lip, slightly exposing his perfect bottom row teeth. Perry was breathless. Before Yoongi could say another word, he smashed his lips against the idols. Yoongi moaned into the kiss and climbed into Perry's... Yoongi's hands found their way to Perry's shoulders, where he let himself get carried away by the sensation of rock-hard muscles that had developed after the numerous fights with Dovenschmerz. Perry's hands were against Yoongi's ass, kneading the flesh like it was dough, drawing out loud and high-pitched moans out of Yoongi. Perry smacked Yoongi's ass lightly, forcing Yoongi to pull away as he arched his back to let out a loud moan. He ground himself against Perry's much-muscled thighs before Perry held Yoongi's waist, effectively stopping him and making him whine. Perry chuckled, pecking Yoongi at the lips. How about we take this to the bedroom, kitten? Perry smirked at the shudder that passed through Yoongi at the pet name. He effortlessly picked the both of them off the ground, with Yoongi still wrapped around him. The action drawing out of a growl out of Yoongi. You're so fucking hot, fuck! He said before crushing his lips against Perry's in a heated kiss that was more tongue than lips. Perry dropped them on the bed and they continued to suck into each other's mouths. Perry's hand began to wander, attaching itself to Yoongi's nipple, feeling it shrink and become hard in his hand as he rolled the butt between his thumb and index finger. He pulled away from Yoongi's mouth and instead latched onto Yoongi's other nipple. My god. He looked Yoongi in the eye as he took his nipple into his mouth and gently sucked on it. Ugh. Yoongi's jaw dropped open in pleasure, but he couldn't bring himself to tear his gaze away from Perry. Perry smirked slightly before gently tugging on Yoongi's nipple with his teeth, making Yoongi throw his head back and arch his back in pleasure. He tugged on the hair at the nape of Perry's neck, signaling him to come back up. Should I take off the head? Perry asked. Yoongi scoffed. Take off everything but the head. Did you forget when I said that I'm attracted to Perry the platypus? Platypus? Perry smirked and complied, taking off Yoongi's boxers too. Yoongi gulped at the view in front of him. There stood Perry, rock-hard chiseled abs, and a rock-hard dick that was both girthy and long. Yoongi crawled over to the edge of the bed where Perry was standing and took a good look at Perry's dick. It was a darker shade of teal than the rest of his body, but it looked like it was glowing because of all the pre-cum that oozed out of it. Yoongi felt immense pride knowing that he was the one who got Perry this hard. He looked at Perry in the eye before slowly licking the tip. Perry hissed and held onto Yoongi's head. Yoongi slipped the head into his mouth, twirling his tongue around it. Fuck, Yoongi! Fuck, you're so good at this! Perry groaned. Yoongi keened at the praise and took more of Perry's dick into his mouth, using his hands to jerk off whatever part of his dick he couldn't fit down his throat. Perry held Yoongi's head still before he began to thrust into Yoongi's mouth, small moans exiting Yoongi. The sight and feel nearly throwing Perry over the edge. Perry pulled out while Yoongi maintained eye contact as he licked his lips, a mischievous glint in his eye. You taste delicious, Agent P. Harry dived onto Yoongi and pushed him against the bed, attacking his lips. Gonna eat you out real good, kitten. Harry growled against Yoongi's lips. Why don't you help me out a little? Harry grinned naughtily before leaning into Yoongi and sticking his tongue out.
And shoot him.
A whimper escaped Yoongi when he realized what Perry was asking him to do. He leaned forward and wrapped his lips around Perry's tongue, sucking and tugging at it, coating it with his saliva, while Perry simply looked at Yoongi. Perry pulled away a couple seconds later. He propped Yoongi on the pillow, spread his legs apart, and then just stared at the beautiful boy that was all laid out for him. He bent down and licked Yoongi's rim, sending sparks of pleasure to shoot all throughout Yoongi's body.
Hey, what's this?
Yoongi's hands found themselves on Perry's fedora. Perry slowly pushed his tongue into Yoongi's asshole, drawing out long, loud moans out of Yoongi. Just like that. Oh shit, yes! Yoongi moaned, trying to catch a glimpse of what Perry was doing.
Blind it down?
Once Yoongi's hole stretched enough to accommodate Perry's tongue, Perry pulled away and dribbled some of the saliva that he had collected in his mouth into his fingers, rubbing them together before he bent down to Yoongi's hole and pushed the rest of the saliva from his mouth into Yoongi. The sensation of the warm saliva made Yoongi feel a certain type of way that he had no way to express other than to arch his back and throw his head back. Perry pushed in a single digit along with his tongue, pushing in and out of Yoongi slowly. Yoongi kept letting out small whimpers and mewls. Perry added in a second figure and scissoring them in, making Yoongi moan louder. Perry tried to find the special spot, and a couple seconds later, Yoongi cried out loudly. Perry found it. Perry kept prodding at it, constantly drawing loud cries out of Yoongi.
It's too late. Too late.
Need you so bad! Perry, please! Yoongi cried out. Perry pulled away to look at the noose he put Yoongi in. You need what, kitten? Ask me clearly, he smirked. Your dick! You're thick, 9-inch, juicy, dark teal, glistening glizzy. I need you to pound me to the next decade! Yoongi cried helplessly. Perry's eyes darkened with lust.
Trying to get motion sickness in this thing.
He flipped Yoongi over, so Yoongi was on all fours, so smoothly that Yoongi nearly came from that one action itself. I think you're pretty wet, right, kitten? Harry asked as he rolled a condom on his throbbing dick. Yes, just put it in already, Yoongi whined.
Passage is missing.
Without any warning, Perry thrust into Yoongi until he was halfway in. Yoongi screamed in shock. Getting bratty, are we, kitten? Do you need me to teach you a lesson or two? Harry growled as he thrusted in the rest of his length into Yoongi. He gave Yoongi a minute to adjust to his size. Yoongi signaled for him to go on a couple seconds later. Harry pulled out almost entirely and thrust back in forcefully, eliciting loud moans from Yoongi. Harry kept it until he found Yoongi's prostate.
Did we kill the asshole first?
Yoongi howled once Perry hit his prostate. His arms gave up and he face planted into the bed. Perry held onto Yoongi's hips with a bruising grip before mercilessly pounding into Yoongi, hitting his prostate with every thrust.
The back there. Maybe it's there.
Yoongi was a mess, banking Yoongi was a mess, banking incoherently. So fucking tight for me, kitten, so good. Ugh! Perry groaned. Perry's teal body bent over Yoongi's pale one as Perry grabbed Yoongi's dick.
Oh!
I touched it, too late.
The both of them were a mess, but they were both equally lost in the pleasure of each other's bodies. I'm gonna cut, Yoongi moaned. Let's come together, baby, Perry growled into Yoongi's ear. 3, 2, 1. Ah! Bolted storage mouth Kirby. Kirby gained the mysterious mouthful mode ability after he flew through that vortex. Now he can stuff an entire set of lockers into his asshole. This one won't budge. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Oh no. And war! He just took a whole chunk of that wall down. Use this to find hidden roots you didn't know about.
Oh!
Light bulb mouth.
Goodbye.
Kirby gained the mysterious Morphle Mode ability after he flew through that vortex. Now he can stuff an entire light bulb into his asshole. Illuminate your surroundings with the glow from your gullet. It's hard to move when you're lit up, so study your surroundings, go dark again and wobble onward. Careful. Bomb? Hold down the button to aim and throw. Got it? Hold, aim, throw. Throw, hit, boom! You can run and throw them too, or roll them ahead of you to get an explosive strike. Target switch.
What? Nintendo Switch?
Okay, where was I? Where was I? Ah! Perry groaned loudly. Yugi, on the other hand, passed out for a couple minutes from the force of the orgasm.
Again. Here we go.
Perry continued to thrust into Yugi's unconscious body to ride off his orgasm. Yugi woke up a couple minutes later to Perry cleaning him up. Upon noticing that he was awake, Perry grinned at him. He leaned up to Yugi and pressed soft kisses against his lips. I'll clean you up, kitten. You did well tonight. Go to sleep. Good night. Yugi fell back into sleep. The last thing he felt was a feather-light kiss on his forehead. He was pretty sure he fell asleep with a smile on his face.
He has no
Yugi woke up later on in the day to an empty apartment, his thoughts falling out of his mouth. Hey! Where's Perry? Oh, that's it, sadly. I hope you liked it and at the very least got a laugh out of it.
What? Wait. That's disappointing.
Yeah, it wasn't as fucked as the other fanfiction. Yeah. It's actually... I don't know. Like, why is Perry the Platypus a human here? That's not fun.
I don't know.
He must be a platypus! Let's see the comments. 16 comments! Holy shit. Okay, I've been screaming ever since I read the summary and it just got louder the more I read. I don't know what even made you consider this pairing. But I'm gonna remember this for a long time. Lol, thanks.
Wow, thanks.
And he replied even. Thank you so much. I like to just pick random characters and pair them with BTS. But I must say that Yoongi is my bias and Perry was my second favorite character. Oh my god.
It's not here.
Actually, I should send this guy a message.
What were you thinking?
No, I want him to write a fanfiction about cute Taro and a BTS member, of course.
Does he do requests?
I don't know. I mean, he wrote about Doraemon, so it's not out of the realm that he would write something like this.
Holy shit, look at this.